Alright, in this video we're going through the study guide for the Unit 3 test. Unit 3 is covering everything that we've talked about with expressions, equations, inequalities, and probability, including simple probability and experimental probability. Number 1 starts by saying, yesterday the student council's bank account was negative $34.22. We want to know which statements are true about that and mark all that apply. As we're looking through these options, you're going to see that there's a bank account balance for today and there's a change that we're talking about. So we're taking what the account balance was yesterday, we're combining a change and getting the account balance for today. So this is how we're looking at each of these options to determine if it was true. So in A, yesterday the bank account balance was negative $34.22. It says that the change in the balance was positive $24.26. So if you take negative $34.22 and you add $24.26 to it, you're going to come up with today's account balance. And that is an account balance of negative $9.96. Because negative $9.96 is not negative $9.97, that is not a true statement and is not one of our answers. For B, if the account balance today is negative $21.33 and the change was $12.89, we want to know, does that new account balance come from negative $34.22 plus $12.89? And negative $34.22 plus $12.89 is negative $21.33. So that does give us our new account balance. Oops. So B is a correct answer here. D says if the account balance today is negative $12.36, the change was positive. Well, we started out at negative $34.22 and we combine a change to get to a smaller negative number. You would have had to move in the positive direction to get there. So yes, you would have added a positive. So C is correct. In D, the account balance today is negative $79.88. The change was negative. Well, if you're at negative $34.22 and you get more negative, yes, your change is going to be a negative. So that is a true statement. And in E, if the balance today is negative $34.22, which is the same thing as what it was yesterday, then the change to the balance was 0. That's correct, meaning that there was no change. So here to mark all that apply, that's B, C, D, and E. In number 2, it says the dimensions of a rectangle are given in the terms of S as shown below. We want to know which expressions represent the perimeter of the rectangle and mark all that apply. Well, if we have 2 dimensions, we can get the other 2. The corresponding side for S is here, and the corresponding side for S plus 1.5 is here. And if you're going to find the perimeter, we know that that means that we're going to add all of the sides together. And when you add the sides together, you're going to get 4 S's and 2 1.5s. And 2 1.5s give you 3. So overall, any expression for the perimeter that's going to be correct is 4S plus 3. So D tells you that 2 times 2S is 4S, and 2 times 1.5 is 3. So D is correct here. For A, we have 4S plus 1.5. We're missing the second 1.5. For B, we only have 2 S's and 1 1.5, so we're missing 2 S's and a 1.5. In C, we'll have 2S plus 3, so we would be missing 2 of the S's. So the only correct answer here is D. The next set of directions say to use the following scenario for questions 3 and 4. Garland works in a shoe store and earns a commission for every dollar's worth of shoes he sells. When he sells $100 worth of shoes, he earns $20 in commission. So the first problem says, which equation can be used to find the total commission C Garland will earn if the cost S of the shoes he sells is known? Before we can answer this, we have to know what commission is. Raise your hand if you can tell me what commission is. Like, what statement could we put on commission?
Money that you earn for doing work.
Money that you earn for doing work.
Percent of sales.
Percent of sales. So commission is going to be a percent of sales. And we know that the word of tells us to multiply. So we'll take our percent, we'll multiply it by the amount of sales, and that will tell us our commission. So in this case, we're talking about what equation could we use if the sales was any amount and the amount of money that he earned was any amount. And we have to know what that percent is. So, in this problem, we know that we get $20 of commission. We're trying to figure out what was the percent of sales, and the sales amount that he sold was $100. So, in order to figure out what the percentage was, you would take 20 and divide 100. And that's going to give us 20%. And when you look at the options, you should notice that there's none of them that say 20%. In A, that 20, if you were giving it to me as a percent, would be 20 with your decimal moved to the right 2 places, so 2,000. That would be 2,000%. So you have to realize that the numbers that get filled into this equation are the actual percents. So if that was going to be correct, we would need to be looking at it as C equals 0.2S, because that's 20% of sales. So the only other options that we have to look at are fractions, and 20% is 20 over 100. 20 and 100 are both divisible by 20, leaving you with 1/5. So his commission is 1/5 of his sales. In number 4, it says if Garland's commission is changed so that he earns $30 for every $200 worth of shoes that he sells, what will the new equation be? So we can do the same thing, saying that the commission will be a percent of sales. Of means that we're going to multiply. The amount of sales that we now have is $200 worth. We're looking to figure out what the percent will be, and the commission that he earned was $30. So again, in order to solve this, you'll divide by 200 on both sides of the equation, leaving you with 30 over 200 is the percent. Now, both of those numbers are divisible by 10. If you divide 30 by 10, you're going to get 3. And if you divide 200 by 10, you're going to get 20. So 3/20ths of his sales is what he is going to earn in commission. So that is D. And now 3/20ths is 15%. So you might lean towards B. But in order for B to be correct, you would have to use the decimal equivalent of the percent, which would be C is equal to 0.15S. Because it does not have the decimal, you cannot simply use the 15S. In number 5, it says, when a snowstorm hit the town of Clarksville, there were already 4 inches of snow on the ground. The storm lasted for 3 hours, and by the time it was over, there were at least 10 inches of snow on the ground. Which number line shows the solution set for the mean number of inches of snow per hour that could have fallen during the storm? You should be able to set up an inequality from this. And if we have at least 10 inches of snow, that is greater than or equal to 10 inches of snow. There were already 4 inches on the ground, and for 3 hours we accumulated more snow. So 3 times x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 10 is an inequality that you could solve in this situation. In order to solve this, you would subtract 4, leaving you with 3 hours of snow should be greater than or equal to 6. If you divide by 3, then you'll come up with x is greater than or equal to 2, meaning you accumulated at least 2 inches of snow per hour for 3 hours time in order to get at least 10 inches of snow on the ground. When you graph this, 2 is going to be included. And you can include fractions because it's possible that you accumulated 2.5 inches of snow or 2 3/4 inches of snow. So the graph that matches this situation is D. In number 6, it says that Fung is rolling a standard 1 through 6 number cube and flipping a coin. What is the probability that the cube will land on 2 or 3 and the coin will land on tails up? So you're looking at 2 different scenarios. The first is rolling a number cube. A 2 or a 3 represents 2 out of the 6 options. And 2 6 we know becomes 1/3. So this is the probability of rolling a 2 or a 3 with the number cube. With the coin, flipping a tails is 1 out of the 2 options. So that's a 1/2 probability for the coin. And any time you ever see the word and associated with probability and you're trying to get their combined results, you're going to do that through multiplication. So you're saying 1/3 times 1/2. And 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 2 is 6. So this is a 1/6 chance that both of these will happen. Now, we didn't mention this before the study guide, so you may want to write down that and for combined probabilities means to multiply. And notice when we had 2 or 3, and we've looked at this several times, with 2 or 3 you're adding together their totals. Like it was a 1/6 chance of getting a 2 and a 1/6 chance of getting a 3, so combined you've got a 2/6 chance at getting either of those. And then when we combined it with the outcome of the coin, we multiplied because we used the keyword and. So and for combined probabilities means to multiply. We want to use the following scenario for questions 7 and 8. It says the length of a rectangle is 4 inches greater than its width. The perimeter of a rectangle is at least 30 inches. The fact that you are looking at a rectangle but you don't see one means that it might be beneficial to draw one. So you can have a rectangle, and we know that the rectangle is going to be made up of 2 lengths and 2 widths. And we know some information about the lengths. It says that the length of a rectangle is 4 inches greater than its width. So to get the length, we are looking at the width plus 4. This allows us to look at our problem with only one variable because we're able to compare the length in comparison to its width, and that allows us to only look at the variable w instead of L and W. So now in 7, which inequality shows the range of possible widths for the rectangle? So we're talking about perimeter. In order to do so, we've got two W's, and we've got two sides that contain W plus 4, because that's our lengths and our widths. And we know that the perimeter is going to be at least 30 inches. So that's going to be greater than or equal to 30. Now we have an inequality that can be solved. 2W plus 2W plus 8 should be greater than or equal to 30. Now combine your like terms to get 4W plus 8, and that's greater than or equal to 30. Subtract 8 from both sides, and that leaves us with 4W is greater than or equal to 22. When you divide by 4, you get that the width has to be greater than or equal to 5.5. So that is B. When you look at 8, it says, which inequality shows the range of possible lengths of the rectangle? Now, each of these options contains a W, but it should contain an L. And when we're talking about the lengths, if we know that the width is 5.5, then the length has to be 5.5 plus 4. So that means that the length has to be greater than 9.5. It says, use the following scenario for questions 9 and 10. The math club needs to raise more than $466.50 for a road trip to state competition. The club has raised 24% of the funds. Members want to find out how much they each need to raise to make up the difference. So number 9 says, which inequality shows how much money each of the 6 club members need to raise if each raises the same amount. So 6 people are going to be raising money and adding it to what they've already raised. And they've already raised 24% of what they need, which is $466.50. And combined, they want it to be greater than what they need, which is $466.50. So this is the inequality that you can use to solve. And 24% of $466.50 is $111.96. So that's how much they have already raised. And we're going to combine that with what each of the 6 people needs to get in order to get more than $466.50. So subtract $111.96 from both sides. That leaves you with 6 people needing to raise more than $354.54. So if you divide that by 6, that means that each person needs to raise more than $59.09. So as far as the number goes, you can narrow that down to C and D, but you have to pay attention to the symbols. Only D has the correct symbol, so D is the correct answer here. If you carry that down to number 10, it says, suppose 3 members quit the club. Now which inequality shows how much each of the members needs to raise if each raises the same amount? So we've cut the amount of people in half, which means that we need to double the amount that each person needs to raise. If you've got half as many people raising money, they need to raise more money by double. So you're taking your $59.09 and multiplying it by 2, meaning that each person needs to raise more than $118.18. Another way you could have looked at that was to say that now I have 3 people raising money to add to our $111.96 that we found in the original, and that needs to be greater than $466.50. And if you were to solve this inequality, you would come up with M is greater than $118.18. Use the following scenario for questions 11 and 12. It says the town library is raising money by selling old books for $4 each. Which equation can be used to find the amount of money raised if the number of books sold is known? Let X represent the number of books and Y represent the number of dollars raised. Well, Y, the number of dollars raised, is going to come from selling books, which is X, and you are selling them at $4 a piece. So Y equals 4X. You should recognize that this is a proportional equation in the form of Y equals KX, where the constant of proportionality or unit rate is $4 per book. In number 12, it says that suppose the town library decided to double the charge for each book. What would the equation be in this case? Well, if you were doubling the charge per book, which is $4 per book, the books are now $8 a piece. So the money will come from charging $8 per book, which is C. We want to use the following scenarios for questions 13 and 14. It says doubling the sum of Steve's and Pam's ages gives 24. If Pam is 10 years old, how old is Steve? Well, we're going to double the ages of Steve and Pam, and that's going to give us the number 24. So that means 2 times Steve plus 2 times Pam will be 24. So if Pam is 10 years old, then 2 times Steve plus 2 times Pam, which is 10, gives us 24. And you're just solving this equation for Steve's age. So that is 2S plus 20 is equal to 24. You're going to subtract 20 from both sides, leaving us with 2S is equal to 4. Divide by 2, and S, or Steve, is 2 years old.
Yes. Yay.
In number 14, if Pam is 4 years old, then how old is Steve? Well, you're using the same equation that you set up, only now Pam is 4 years old. So 2 times Steve plus 2 times Pam, who is now 4, would be 24. 2 times 4 is 8, so 2S plus 8 equals 24. 2S will be equal to 24 minus 8, which is 16. And now Steve will be 16 divided by 2, which is 8 years old. Now we're going to use the following scenario for questions 15 and 16. It says Cleo is 42 years old, which is twice as old as Clara will be in 8 years. And how many years will Clara be as old as Cleo is now? So Cleo is 42. And that is the age that Clara will be in 8 years if we multiplied it by 2, because it says twice Clara's age in 8 years. So if we were going to fill that in, we could say 2 times C plus 8, and we can solve this equation. So that leaves us with 42 is equal to 2 times Clara plus 2 times 8, which is 16. If you take 42 and subtract 16, you're going to come up with 26. So 26 would be equal to 2C. Divide by 2, and you get 13. So that is Clara's age. But we want to know in how many years will Clara be as old as Cleo is now. So you need to take Cleo's age and subtract Clara's age, and that means that there is 29 years difference there. So the correct answer here is D. And then in 16 it says, how old will Cleo be when Clara is as old as Cleo is now? Well, Clara will be that age in 29 years, so 42 plus 29 will give you the new age of 71. All right, we want to use the following scenario for questions 17 and 18. It says, according to a weather report, there's a 65% chance of snow and a 40% chance of freezing temperatures in the mountains tomorrow. Which word best describes the likelihood of snow in the mountains? The chance of snow is 65%, and 65% is more than 50%, but less than 100%, so we would classify that as likely. For 18, it says, which word best describes the likelihood of freezing temperatures in the mountains tomorrow? And the chance of freezing temperatures is 40%, which is greater than 0 but less than 50, so that is considered unlikely. For 19 and 20, it says to use the following scenario. Ivan is doing an experiment with a standard 1 to 6 number cube. About how many times should he expect to roll an odd number on the number cube if he rolls it 600 times? Well, we have 3 odds out of 6 numbers, so how many odds should that be out of 600 times? You can cross multiply and divide here, and you would get 300, or you can say that there is a 1/2 chance of getting an odd, and we're going to do that 600 times, and again you would come up with 300. So 300 is the correct answer here. For number 20, it says about how many times should he expect to roll an even number on the number cube if he rolls it 1,000 times. There are 3 evens out of 6 numbers, so how many should that be out of 1,000? Or you can look at this as he has a 1/2 chance each time he rolls for the next 1,000 rolls, and that is a 500 that you should come up with. We want to use the following scenario for questions 21 and 22. It says a traffic engineer records a sample of the types of vehicles that cross a bridge. She counts 100 passenger cars, 22 light trucks, and 28 heavy trucks. What is the approximate probability that a random vehicle crossing the bridge is a passenger car? Well, the passenger cars, the favorable amount is 100, and that is out of the total amount. And there were 100 passenger cars plus 22 light trucks plus 28 heavy trucks, so that's 150 total vehicles. So 100 out of 150 is 66.6 repeating percent, which is 67%. For 22, it says, what is the approximate probability that a random vehicle crossing the bridge is a light truck? Well, there were 22 light trucks out of 150 total vehicles, and 22 out of 150 is 0.146 repeating, so that is 14.6 repeating percent, or rounded to the nearest whole, that is 15%. We're told to use the following scenario for questions 23 through 25. The dimensions of a rectangle are given in terms of x as shown below. We want to write an expression representing the perimeter of the rectangle as a sum of the 4 side lengths. And when we look at the sum of the 4 side lengths, that's the side plus the side plus the side plus the side. So in the picture, if the left side is x, then the right side is x. And if the bottom is x plus 9.2, then the top is x plus 9.2. So when you add all of those sides together, you have x plus 9.2 plus x plus 9.2. That is showing where you are adding all 4 sides together. Now that's not the only option. You can rearrange because addition is commutative, so you could have x plus 9.2 plus x plus 9.2, and that would be fine as well. In 24, it says to explain how the expression 2 times 2x plus 9.2 also represents the perimeter of the rectangle. Well, we come up with x plus 9.2 by adding together adjacent sides. So, that is the product of 2 adjacent sides. So the product of two adjacent sides and 2. Because when you multiply that by 2, it now covers all 4 sides. We're then told that the perimeter of the rectangle is 26.4 units. So what is the value of x? So we can use our product of two adjacent sides and 2 and set it equivalent to the perimeter, which is 26.4, and now solve the equation to figure out the value of x. You would first distribute, getting 4x plus 18.4, and that'll be equal to 26.4. You'll subtract 18.4 from both sides, and 26.4 minus 18.4 will leave you with 8. So 4x is equal to 8. Divide by 4, and x would be equal to 2. So in this case, our x value is 2.